Hello all, welcome to my YouTube video. Come on, girl. Hello everyone, well this is good morning for me. It's morning here, May 21st, my due date for my chicks. So I had 8 this morning, 4 last night, but I just wanted to let you know what I'm doing. This here window that I cut out yesterday is my kitchen window, so that's what that window's gonna become. Grandma and Grandpa were here last night and they helped me put on all this paper, and today I'm gonna try to put up some boards. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do today. Took the nails out of my little footboard here, and I'm gonna set it up on the other side of the wall here, and then I can do this by myself. Load. Throughout this next video, I'd like to read to you a story or two out of the book, The Peacemakers of the North Peace. This story is called Raft Baby of the Peace, written by Harold Fryer. Surely one of the strangest but true legends from the early days of the Peace River country concerns a baby girl found floating down the Peace on a raft the spring of 1872. A Blackfoot Indian by the name of Jean found her while paddling his canoe upriver in search of beaver. Noting the tiny girl was obviously starving, the bewildered Jean lost no time getting her to the nearby Beaver Indian encampment, where a young mother took her in and nursed her. So, I knew there'd be some figuring with this one, and I didn't think of that, so I'm going to take that down. Come down. There. And I'm going to have to fix that guy up. There's my mark, which actually kind of works out perfectly because this guy is a little cracky pooed, so. A few years later, the beavers broke camp, taking the baby with them. Some 17 years later, while visiting Edmonton, pioneer Peace River missionary, the Reverend Alfred Geary, chanced to meet a family from St. Paul, Minnesota, who also were visiting in Alberta. The Vinnings confided that their lovely olive-skinned daughter had been turned over to them as a baby by a free trader, who claimed he'd got her from some Indians in the Peace River country. They had adopted her and had taken her to the United States. Father Geary could have forgotten the incident if by chance he hadn't employed Blackfoot Jean on his return north. During their travels together, Jean casually mentioned finding a baby floating downriver on a raft. Immediately, Reverend Geary began wondering if the Vinnings' lovely daughter and the raft baby weren't the same person. Intrigued, he set out to learn where the baby came from. With the help of a trapper named Scissorman, this missionary inquired around and eventually learned that an Englishman called Armson had panned gold on the Peace with such luminaries as 12-Foot Davis and Nigger Dan Williams. The fall of 1871. However, he had taken his Blackfoot wife and headed up the South Pine River for a winter's trapping. Nothing had been heard of them since. Following this lead, Geary and Scissorman set out up the pine and soon located the remains of a trapper's cabin. A grisly sight greeted them as they stepped through the doorway, for on the bed lay the bones of a long-dead man, while on the floor reposed the remains of a woman. From a notebook hung on a peg driven in the cabin wall, and from evidence scattered about, Father Geary was able to reconstruct the tragedy. So I'm putting up these so tight here because some of them are still a little bit wet. So I'm put them up tight so if they shrink, I'll have something to deal with for gap. But that didn't go up too bad with my hole up there. So the nice thing about this side is I don't gotta put up boards like I did here on this side. Here I got all these 2x6s, 2 or 3 stacked on top of each other, so it's pretty nice. This is a pretty darn sturdy building. The guy must have had a lot of lumber to deal with, for sure. The Armsons had apparently put up their snug cabin the autumn of 1871, and trapping obviously had been good, for many furs lay scattered around, chewed by rodents and moldered by time. Moreover, the notebook stated that on March 31st, Mrs. Armson had given birth to a baby girl with vocal cords in fine working order. Let's hope that this fits. I cut it and put it right there. Unfortunately, a few days later, Armson had accidentally wounded himself and was no longer able to hunt. Mrs. Armson's efforts to supply the family with meat were unsuccessful, and before long the family began starving. When the situation appeared hopeless, Mrs. Armson made one last desperate effort to save the baby. Though hunger weakened, she carried her baby to the river, built a raft, placed the little girl aboard, and pushed her out into the current, hoping she'd be found before it was too late. Then she returned to the cabin to await death beside her husband. The notebook proved beyond much doubt that the Vinnings' lovely daughter was the Armson baby. Armson had noted, born this day, March 31st, 1872, a daughter perfectly formed. He also noted she had a mark on her toes, identical to one Mrs. Armson had inflicted on herself with an axe while splitting wood at Fort St. John mining camp, a livid scar on the second toe of her left foot. "Yes," wrote Mrs. Vinning to Father Geary, inquiry, "our Lily does have a scar on her toe identical to the one you describe." I hope you enjoyed that very interesting, slightly hair-raising story written by Harold Fryer of Lily Vinning, an Englishman's, Armson's daughter, loved and bore by his wife, a Blackfoot Indian woman. Raft Baby of the Peace. What an amazing thing it would have been to have seen the Peace River country before automobiles and trains and airplanes had arrived here. The beautiful came that must have been here, but in the beauty of seeing the frontier came brutality in so many ways. I see some people and myself at times say or think things like they were born in the wrong time, the wrong period, a few generations too late. But we were placed here at this time, in our time, all for a wonderful reason. With that, it's good to remind ourselves what we have and what our ancestors didn't have. Appreciate what they did and who they were, and carry on the old ways that they brought over to this new land from the old one. I guess in what I had last said, I should have mentioned boats as well. This short story by Margaret Davies, The River, mentions the new big tool and luxury placed in the waters of the Peace. The river had always been there, wide and calm and deep, or narrow and swift, always cold as mountain water should be, now low with treacherous sand or gravel bars, then suddenly rising as melting snow from distant mountains joined the flow. On the flood would come driftwood, trees, and loose earth to choke the river passages. This, the river, was the highway into Upper Peace Country, a wonder of nature, a mighty river of canyon, rapids, and eddies, cutting through the Rocky Mountains. The native people had always used it for travel. Then came Alexander Mackenzie in 1793, followed by Finley, Fraser, and other explorers, the company men of the Northwest and the Hudson's Bay, free traders, gold seekers, trappers, and finally the settlers, all used the Peace River as a water highway. The boats of this water highway were of all shapes and sizes. First the birch canoe, the spruce bark and the dugout, then the rafts, scows, York boats, and cable ferries using water flow as power. Next came the mission boats, St. Charles and St. Joseph, and the boats of the Hudson's Bay Company, Athabasca, Winoosk, and Peace River. Boats belonging to other companies, the Northland Echo, the Pine Pass, the Glenfell, the motor ferries, and best known of all, the D.A. Thomas. Boats were the link with the outside. Each day saw boats coming and going. They carried mail, passengers, and freight, all busy supplying the transportation needs of the scattered settlers along the river from Peace River Crossing to Hudson's Hope. To be a riverman on the Peace River was not a job for an amateur. It required skill plus resourcefulness. Old masters of the trade were Doug Cadenhead and Mac McGarvey, to name only two. There were others in the early days and since. These men could read the water. They could tell by the look of it where the sandbars had shifted, when the water was deep enough for their craft. In the winter, when the river water froze, the Peace was once again the highway. Men with teams freighted on the ice, risking their lives and the lives of their horses, when a Chinook softened the ice, or in spring trying to get in one more trip before the breakup. The river was noted for its breakups. 1 hour the ice would look fast from one shore to the other, then suddenly a channel would open, and another, and another. Then the ice would all break up, freeing the swift water of its winter's load with a mighty roar. What had only a few hours before been a frozen expanse would now be a mighty river running free. Betting on the exact day, hour, and minute of the breakup was a favorite pastime. These are my trees that I pulled out of the bush and the bank of the creek. Take them out to our fire cutting place for this winter. Clean the back end of the house out. A lot of logs on the side hill. Maybe I'll get those someday. Today I'm going around and covering all these roots on these spruce trees with some manure. Cows are joining me. It's a beautiful day. Here's some more roots I gotta cover up. Hey, what are you doing? Hey. Come on. Thank you for watching our video.